Chesterton, don't emigrate. This country was settled by the poor and thriftless, and now few more than the poor and thriftless remain in it. Let me try to present an overall picture. What is left of the country has become a 19th century Ireland, with all economic power in the hands of absentees. It is not that everyone below the level of a millionaire is too stupid to foresee possibility of complete destruction, or the middle and lower classes virtuously imbued with such fanatical patriotism they are prepared for mass suicide rather than leave, because dukes are emigrating and sending the price of shipping space into brackets which make the export of any commodity but diamonds or their own hides a dubious investment. Even the pawning of all the family assets would not buy steerage passage for a year-old baby. Besides, there are not enough bottoms in the world to transport 150 million people. If the grass is not stopped, except for a negligible few, it will cover Americans when it covers America. No wonder a strange and conflicting spirit animates our people. Apathy? Yes, there is apathy. You can see it on the faces in a line of relief clients wondering how long an industrially stagnant country can continue their dole, even though now it consists of nothing but unpalatable chemicals, so-called concentrates. Despair? Certainly. The riots and lootings, especially the intensified ones recently in Cleveland and Pittsburgh, are symptoms of it. The overcrowded churches, the terrific increase in drugging and drinking, the sex orgies which have been taking place practically in the open in Baltimore and Philadelphia and Boston, are stigmata of desperation. Hope? I suppose there is hope. Congress sits in uninterrupted session, and senators lend their voices night and day to the destruction of the grass. The Federal Disruptions Commission has published the 11th volume of its report and is currently holding hearings to determine how closely the extinct buffalo grass is related to Synodon dactylon. Every research laboratory in the country, except those whose staffs and equipment have been moved with their proprietary industries, is expending its energies in seeking a salvation. Perhaps only in the Deep South, as yet protected by the width of the lower Mississippi, is there something approaching a genuine hope, although, ironically, that may be the product of ignorance. Here the overlords have gone, and the poor whites, unsupported by an explicit kinship, have withdrawn into complete listlessness. Some black men have fled, but to most the grass is a mere bogey, incapable of frightening those who have survived so much. Now, for the first time since 1877, the polls are open to all, and there are again Negro governors and black legislatures, and they are legislating as if forever. Farm tenancy has been abolished. The great plantations have been expropriated and made cooperative. The Homestead Act of 1862 has been applied in the South, and every citizen is entitled to claim a quarter section. There is a great deal of laughter at this childish lawmaking, but it goes on, changing the face of the region, the lawmakers themselves not at all averse to the joke. Everything LaFassisi wrote was not only dull, but biased and unjust as well. It was true capital was leaving the country rapidly, but what other course had it? To stay and attempt to carry on industry in the midst of the demoralization was obviously impractical. The plants remained, and when a way was found to conquer the grass, we would be glad to reopen them, for this would be a practical course, just as the flight of capital was a practical course. Standards of living were now so reduced in the United States, it would be more profitable to employ cheap American labor than overpaid Latin or European. I had now no fixed abode, dividing my time between Rio and Buenos Aires, Melbourne and Manchester. General Thario and his family lived in Copenhagen, overseeing our continental properties, now of equal importance with the South American holdings. Before leaving, and indeed on every trip back home, he visited his son, no easy thing to do, what with the young man's constant movement and the extreme difficulty of going from east to west against the torrent pouring in the opposite direction. Joe had married the female of the snapshot, or contracted some sort of permanent alliance with her. I never got it quite straight, and the Tharios were deplorably careless about such details. And she proved as eccentric as he was. No appeal to self-interest, no pleading he forego his morbid preoccupation with the grass for the sake of his family could move them. A.W., you have seen it, heard it, smelled it. Can't you explain? Miraculously touched with the gift of lucidity for fact as you are for the fictions of production, overhead, and dividends. Oh, not to Mama. Either she understands better than I or not at all, but to the old man or Connie. As a child, you learn for the first time of death. The heart is shuttered in a little cell too cruel for breathing. The sun is gray. In an instant you forget the sky is bright. The blood pounds. Years later, the adolescent falls in love with death, primps his spirit for it, recalls in unpresumptuous brotherhood Shelley and Keats and Chatterton. Afterward, the flush fades. We are reconciled to life, but the promise is still implicit. Now, however, it must be earned, awaited. Haste would destroy the savor. The award assured, pace becomes dignified. But death is not death. Life is never mocked. The grass is not death any more than it is evil. The grass is the grass. It is me, and I am it. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would not have told you. No, I suppose not. Yet it hurts my liver to offer the old boy incomprehensible reasons or verbiage like compulsion neurosis, when all he wants is to protect me from my own impulses, as he protected me from the army. Florence and I delight in him. He comes again next week, if possible. But we cannot convey to him the unthinkableness of leaving. I heard about this visit later from the General. Joe had scoured Chicago for the alcoholic commodities now practically unprocurable and returned in triumph to the couple's furnished room. There they entertained him with 2 bottles of Cointreau and a stone demijohn of corn whiskey. Touched. Filial affection. Even drank the Cointreau. Fiddlin' stuff. No wonder it was still available in the drought. Better son a man never had. Girl's all right. Moved in circles. Perhaps not accustomed. Bit rough in speech, but heart of gold. Give you the shirt right off her back. Manner of speaking. Know what I mean. But she would not add her persuasions to those of the General. Joe's got to stay. It's not something he sat down and thought up the way you plan dinner or whether blue goes good with your new permanent. He's got to stay because he's got to stay. And of course, so do I. We couldn't be satisfied anywhere we couldn't see the grass. Life's too dull away from it. But of course, that's only part. It's too big to explain. But George, Joe, as you call him, highly talented, sensitive, shouldn't be allowed to decay, the General argued. Fascination, understand, but effort of will, break the spell. Europe, birthplace of culture, reflection, give him a proper perspective, chance to do things. Even when the evening lengthened and he became more lucid under the stimulus of corn whiskey and Cointreau, he could not shake them. Judicious retreat, especially in the face of overwhelming superiority, has always been a military weapon, and no captain, no matter how valiant, has ever feared to use it. Pop, George Thario had retorted good-humoredly. You dragged in the metaphor, not I. You've heard of the Alamo, and Vicksburg, and Corregidor? Well, this is them. All rolled into one. End of Chapter 4, Part H.